My next guest is an adventurer who is on a mission to inspire women into adventure. Being inspired by so many female adventurers, she reads the books of these incredible female adventurers back in the day and then recreates their stories right from scratch. What she does is incredible, and I was so happy to have her on the podcast to talk about these incredible trips. From India to Scotland, she recreates these stories in such an amazing way. So I'm delighted to introduce Elise. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, and what I absolutely love about your story is the extremes you go to sort of look back in history and then recreate these incredible adventures through these books that you've read. Before we sort of jump into that, probably the best place to start is at the beginning. And how did this all sort of come about, reading these books and getting into these adventures?
Yeah, so I don't really remember how I stumbled across the first book. So it was by Alexandra, David-neel, who actually most people I speak to don't really know who she is. And I came across her book when I was about 16, and I read it and I just thought, wow, this is amazing that this woman's done this. So she was quite famous for a 14-year journey through Asia, where she left Europe in about 1912 and travelled all through Asia just to get into Tibet, where she could learn more Buddhism, because obviously back then, there wasn't the internet, you didn't have a phone, so you actually had to go and find these things out for yourself. And I was just so amazed reading that book. It's actually just the last 6 months of this 14-year journey, but she touches on, how grueling that trip was, how ill she got, how long it was. She had to do things like sleep on cold mountain passes with just her coat. And I just read it and I was like, I just don't know how she did this. And also, why don't I know about this woman already? Why wasn't I taught about her at school? Because she's so inspiring. And then, I read that book, and after that, I just always had it in my mind that I wanted to recreate her journey in some way. Then I didn't think, I'll do it without modern equipment. But I always wanted to do it. And then about 12 years later, I decided it was kind of time to do it. I kind of went back to the book and reread her story and thought, I think people need to know about this woman, and I really need to highlight, especially in a bit of a man's world, how epic her journey was and what she actually managed to achieve.
So because a lot of people, when they sort of recreate these stories, as I was saying before, they sort of say, oh, well, I've got the socks from 1912, but underneath I have the North Face jacket. You go for the real extremes, right down to everything, the small hot water bottles, the alpaca coats. So for people listening, why don't you tell it how the sort of planning of this adventure sort of came about?
Yeah, so obviously I couldn't just Google this stuff, because back then, so women like Alexandra, they were already fighting to be taken seriously. So in their writing, they would never put, if they felt vulnerable or weak or what they were wearing they only just say undergarments and then whatever their coat is, because they want to be taken seriously. So they're not going to talk about things like that. So I ended up doing so much research into what they actually had in 1912. And it's quite surprising, what they actually did have back then. But I ended up going down to the same bra and pants that she would have had. So rocket bras and cotton undergarments and things like that. So I decided that I think to do her journey justice and to kind of show how difficult it was, it would never have been the same if I was in, a North Face jacket. I would have never felt what she felt, and I would never be able to highlight, the amazing journey that she did. So I ended up reading all her books, actually going back to, olden days when there was no internet. And just reading through, and I picked out everything that she mentioned. So she had, hot water bottles, a wooden bowl, kettle, matches, all these little things, her yak wool coat. So I ended up just picking all those out and, going with that.
What was the sort of kick for this journey? What sort of kicked you into action 12 years later to really pursue it?
Yeah, so I'm always very open about this, but I actually had really bad panic attacks, all through my 20s, to the point where It still actually does really affect my life now, but they would be so bad. Like I couldn't go to work and I had to get loads of therapy and go on medication and stuff. And actually, while I was going through that, I reread this book because to me it was so brave. I really struggled with doing things like even getting a bus for me, which sounds crazy to someone who's never had anything like this. But the amount of physical symptoms that brings up, so like your legs would shake, I'd be totally dizzy, I wouldn't be able to see properly. And for me reading this book, you know, she must have been so brave back then just to kind of leave everything behind. So, you know what, I don't want to have a traditional woman's life. I'm just going to go off. And the amount of people that, you know, must have fought back and thought she was crazy. And I think actually reading that and thinking, oh, you know what, if she can do that back then, when she would have gone, she wouldn't have even known where she was going. You know, she maybe would have seen a photo from India. Like that was all she would have seen. So it actually really helped me. And then after that, I just thought when I started to feel a bit better, I thought now's the time. So I sort of started putting the feelers out, seeing if I could plan a route and get a bit of sponsorship. And then kind of before I knew it, I was going. I was off.
And so how did it feel arriving in India, was it?
Yeah.
Arriving in India, heading up into the mountains, first day, what was the sort of feeling like?
You know, the thing I was most worried about was that wearing the old clothes, because I'm quite, obviously because I was quite a nervous person anyway, I thought everyone's going to be looking at me, they're going to wonder. Oh, so I actually built the old backpack I had out of an old chair because I'd kind of run out of my money by the point I went to buy like a 1912 backpack, and they're really expensive. They're like 500 to 800 quid. So I ended up doing loads of research, like what does a backpack actually look like? And I built my own. So I had like this chair on my back with a basket, all these old clothes. And I was just really self-conscious more than anything. But you know what? It's fine. No one even blinked an eyelid. So it was kind of that. And the whole thing, you know, organising a trip like this it's actually, I think, harder than actually doing the trip. So because we went to Sikkim, which is a really small little bit of India at the top, and it's a really sensitive area because it's so small. And we had to get like 5 different permits. We weren't allowed satellite phones or drones or anything like that. So organising it was a bit of a nightmare. So actually, when I was there, it was quite a relief that I'd actually made it. But yeah, I was probably just, I think, a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, when I got there.
And so how was the sort of experience of, because I don't know, when I try on stuff from 1912 or 1920, which is very rare, I have to say. Yes, that's basically what I was trying to get at. Isn't it really itchy? Yeah,
and I've actually got a picture of by the end. So I was there for a month in these old clothes, and I just had a rash all over my body because also it was freezing, but in the morning it was actually really sunny every morning. So from about 7 a.m. till 12, it was really sunny. So I'd be walking and I'd be getting really hot. And then after 12, the clouds would come in and it would be freezing. So I think my skin was just going through so many different temperatures and, you know, sweating, then not sweating, and then, wool. And it wasn't pretty. I actually had to put my arms in the cold, like glacial rivers quite a lot. And that really helped because it put the itching down. But just shows, I guess, like what people back in the day went through when they did these things.
Yeah, and I mean, up in the sort of Indian mountains towards sort of Tibet is some of the most beautiful scenery. And the imagery you must have seen on a day-to-day, although itching and freezing cold at times, was probably absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, and I still learnt to appreciate it. So obviously the first 2 weeks I was just completely out of it, you know, like trying to deal with everything that was going on. And then because I didn't have any modern stuff, I would go, you know, there'd be a beautiful mountain or the sun would be setting or something amazing. And to begin with, I'd go for my phone and to be like, oh, I'll take a picture. But then I realised I didn't have it. So actually, I really, really, I think, appreciated it a lot more because I just had my eyes and my mind to look at everything. And I remember that trip so vividly. I mean, obviously I was doing something a bit crazy, but also I remember it more than anything else, any holiday I've ever been on, anything like that. And I actually put that down to not having anything modern to distract me, and to just really, I don't know, engaging with my surroundings and really feeling it as well. I think that's what the clothes did. I really felt that weather. And I would like be freezing cold at night, just waiting for the morning, just sitting up with my hot water bottle, waiting for the sun. So obviously then I really, started loving the sun. And yeah, it was really interesting actually doing it that way, and how it changes your relationship with what's around you.
I suppose also sort of being in the moment gave you that time to sort of reflect and take it all in. Yeah,
definitely. And we did a lot. So we were all day long, we were kind of walking, and which again gives you, a lot of time to kind of think and look around. And once I'd got everything on, I was a bit of a pack horse, to be honest, had everything that she would have had on me. But once I was going, it's just all that time to kind of, reflect and take it in. And obviously I had her book with me, so I was reading what she would have written when she was there. And yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And food? Was that quite difficult, or was it very much sort of buying local food from the locals, of course? But was it sort of difficult to get hold of?
No, not really. So I did what she did, and she would just go into people's houses along the way and give them a bit of money, and they'd cook her food. So we took quite a lot of food with us. So I tried to keep the team, I think, because this whole project for me is kind of about inspiring women and showing what these amazing women of the past did. I tried to keep the whole team female. So I had a female mountain guide, and I had Emily who came along and filmed it. But female porters aren't a thing in India. They are in Nepal, I think, now. But we were joined by 5 amazing guys from Lachin, which is this really amazing town, nestled deep in the Himalayas. Most beautiful place. So they came with us, and they carried sort of emergency equipment, camera stuff, bits of food, but we shared it all out between us. And we just cooked as we went, and we also stayed in, as we passed people's houses, we just ate amazing potato curry basically, which they were all cooking, which was incredible, and get to meet people, a lot of Tibetan refugees in that area as well. So they all have amazing kind of stories and lovely, gentle, beautiful people. So yeah, that's kind of what we did for food, which was amazing because that's what she would have, exactly what she did as well. So.
And also, I suppose, when you are up in the mountains, not much probably has changed in those 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we got to her cave, this is where it really hit me. So her cave was a really important part of her story, because she was actually the first Western woman to meet the Dalai Lama, and he told her she needed to learn Tibetan and practice more Buddhism. So she basically got herself a teacher who was a really high Buddhist in Lachin, and they went, and she lived in one cave for 2 years and he lived in the other, and she basically meditated there, learned her Tumo breathing, which kept her warm, which is only how she kept warm, I've discovered, because I couldn't do that. And so when I was in her cave looking out, I was actually thinking, this landscape, it won't have changed in 100 years. And India, the country and our surroundings, everything, culturally, it's changed loads. So Sikkim was its own country until 1975. So when she was there, it was completely different. But yeah, looking at the mountains, I was like, this is amazing, because this is exactly what she would have been looking at.
And what's the sort of moment that you look back on that trip where was the sort of one of the amazing moments that really stuck out for you?
I think so. The whole point of doing that bit of the trip, so I did the very first bit of her 14-year journey, and this was where she got the first views of Tibet, and it kind of triggered her the rest of the 14 years, going, I need to get into this country, because Tibet, it was very closed off, as it is now. You couldn't travel around freely. So she went up this path to look over and to try and find a way in. So that's why I wanted to do this bit. And actually the main point where you can look over and see into Tibet is near Mount Kanchenjunga, which is the 3rd highest peak in the world, which I didn't even know was there. It's up there with Everest, in this bit of Sikkim. It's crazy. So that was the bit where we were trying to aim to get to, and it was kind of the last bit of the trip, and so much had happened before we got there, but we managed to kind of climb up the side of this It's called the Zumu Glacier, so it comes all the way down from Mount Kanchenjunga. It's like absolutely amazing. So we climbed all the way up there in the end and got the same views that she would have had all those years ago across into Nepal and Tibet. So that was definitely the highlight. And also because we thought at quite a lot of points we weren't going to make it. So just being there was, pretty great.
And so she took, 12 years to do this?
Not that bit of the journey. So
the entire trip.
The entire trip, she took 14 years, basically because she went through China, she went all different ways just trying to get into Tibet, and every time she got to a border they would turn her away, or she'd be like, someone would tell on the British and they'd come and get her and bring her out. She just, and that's another thing, just persistence, 14 years of trying. And eventually she managed to get in, and she disguised herself as, there's lots of pilgrims that go into Lhasa, Buddhist pilgrims. So she kind of dressed as a man and covered her face and obviously she could speak the language at the time. So she managed to disguise herself and get in and read these ancient Buddhist doctrines, which obviously no one else had ever seen before.
Wow. God. And I suppose, what were the sort of moments which you look back on? Also, did you have any sort of scary times?
Yeah, I think mainly it was the cold, because obviously I was in an old canvas tent. I had my yak wool coat, and then I was just sleeping in blankets, which is all I could find that she had. But luckily she had the 2 hot water bottles, and pretty much all night I would just refill them and sleep with them I didn't even sleep in the tent. I just curled up by the fire. So you can imagine kind of what state I was in by the end of a month. It just got so cold at times. It was scary, like really, really cold. I mean, it would go down to -10, -15. It was really bad. And then, and I like the warm. I like being on a beach. So for me, it's a real shock because I'd never actually been to mountains like that before. And the hot water bottles saved me. I mean, I didn't sleep much because I was just by the fire all night, making sure it didn't go out. And then also when you get above a certain altitude, the trees were going. So I was walking around kind of collecting sticks manically, just thinking, God, if we get any higher, I'm not going to be able to have a fire. So I think it was the cold. There were times where I was so cold. Yeah, it was scary.
Because up there, what sort of altitude are you at?
We went up to like 5,100, I think. Which obviously if you kind of do it slowly, it's fine. But we did feel basically all the different permits in Sikkim, they all got a bit mixed up. So we had to do a different bit of the trip first. So we ended up going really high quite quickly, which I know absolutely you shouldn't do, but we didn't really have a choice. The first week we were all quite sick, to be honest. About 5,000, which is high. And it means I was going slow anyway, walking, but yeah, it was slow going.
And you were there for how long?
A month.
God, wow. And I suppose sort of coming back, did you feel, because as you said, you suffered with anxiety, did that sort of help, not cure it, but alleviate it?
Well, yeah, you know what? I really thought it would. And I thought, I've done this amazing thing now, I can do anything. And then I actually got back and it was almost worse than ever. It was crazy, but I think it was just such a big change, and actually over the next few months, it definitely helped. But initially getting back, I mean, you might know if you've been on sort of long trips, it's a big assault on the sense, especially if you've been in the mountains with no equipment and no one talking to you. Is quite overwhelming.
Yeah, I always find when you sort of been out in the countryside and then you come back to a city, it's incredibly overwhelming. Probably for people listening, it's like, in a sense, lockdown. You were 3 months not being able to see anyone, talk to anyone, and then suddenly be chucked into a birthday party. And you're oh my word.
Yeah, it does really affect
how do I
you.
React?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock coming back. But I think in the long term, then yeah, it's definitely obviously helped a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always say to people, you don't need to go and walk through the Himalayas with a chair on your back to kind of get through your anxiety and help, even if you just have a walk in the park, like anything like that is good. But yeah, you don't need to do what I did.
Although it sounds like the most incredible adventure.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing. Life-changing, I'd say. And just the people I met, and Django, who was the guide that I found, she was absolutely amazing, and actually was told by so many people, you'll never find a female mountain guide in India. It's not something that women there do. And I looked for months and months, and then actually a friend of a friend of a friend knew someone who might know someone, and ended up being put in touch with her, and she was incredible, really blazing the way for women. And she's now opened a homestay that has kind of a training school for girls who want to be mountain guides. She's really like blazing the trails for women out there. So yeah, she's a friend for life. So yeah, I'm also really inspiring in so many ways.
And I suppose that was your first sort of big trip, in a sense, of reading up about past inspirational female adventurers from the past, let's say. And then you went into Nan Shepherd, The Living Mountain.
Yeah, so I wanted to do someone closer to home. And I'd always known of this book. And my mum gave me a copy. She was like, you have to read this. It's amazing. And I read it and I thought, I need to do that. I need to go and find these places and try and understand this book on a deeper level of what Nan would have kind of experienced while she was writing it. And then the more I looked into it, the more amazing her story was. She'd put that book in a drawer for 70 years or something because no one would publish it at the time because it was an unusual format. She wasn't taken that seriously. Eventually it got published, and it's this sort of masterpiece and a really, really sort of celebrated book now. So I wanted to do something closer also, again, because a lot of people I know hadn't really heard of Nan Shepherd, even though she's on the new Scottish £5 note now. Even when I was there and I said, to people, do you know who this woman is? No one really knew. But yeah, she's amazing, has an amazing story. And I'd also never been to Scotland. Could you believe it? So I just really wanted to go. So yeah.
Yeah, I only discovered her actually on this podcast because we had Jenny Tuff on an episode 3 and it was her favourite book.
Yeah.
And I'd never sort of heard about it. And then your story as well of trying to recreate Nan Shepherd's experience in Scotland was just incredible.
Yeah, and I think because that trip was more, I didn't have a planned route because she just writes about different locks and different places. And so I just went round with the book. It had all my stuff on my back and I just went round and found all the places that she talks about in the book. And it was really amazing to kind of be there. And again, with the old clothes. So she wrote that at the end of the Second World War, and it was actually going into the mountains was her kind of escape from all the horrors that were going on. And I think that's why that book is so strong and powerful, because all that was going on around her. But I ended up searching like what she would have had to eat. And then obviously it was the war, so everything was rationed. But again, I was really surprised. So there was Mars bars, they were around. Things like this. They had tampons, they had all this lip balm. So I was like, great, I can take all this stuff with me. And then I just kind of wandered around in this old tweed coat, again, very itchy, and this old sort of army tent, and found all the places that she writes about. And again, in the old clothes, it was amazing because it was just sideways raining when I first got there. And I was like, this is miserable, this is horrible. But actually, after a few days, I really kind of learned, after reading the book, she kind of talks about the ecosystem and how everything has its place. And in the end, I kind of thought, actually, yeah, like the rain is here because it's doing something. So I shouldn't hate the rain and things like that. And all this stuff, became a bit of it was like a mindfulness journey. Yeah.
Wow. And so for people listening, going back to sort of 1940, what sort of food were you eating when you were up there? Apart from deep fat fried Mars bars.
Yeah. Oh, they weren't deep fried, unfortunately. And also, I think I took a few too many Mars bars because they were rationed, right? You got the tiniest bit, but I had a whole the whole thing. So maybe I cheated a little bit. But no, it's like potatoes, jam, eggs, oats, that kind of, I just made stews, like carrots, things like that. And actually that was the best bit of the day, getting my little army stove out and cooking up my carrots and my potatoes and having a wash in the river and the locks. But yeah, it was after the initial week of the torrential rain and sideways wind. The sun came out and it was the most incredible experience. It was incredible. That whole landscape in the Cairngorms is amazing. I swam in the locks and did everything there's an amazing passage in The Living Mountain where she goes naked into one of the locks. So I did that as well, just on my own, like in the middle of nowhere. It was really incredible.
Wow, God. Yeah, Scotland has a habit of throwing up some extreme weathers from time to time.
I thought it'd be warmer in June. That's why I chose June.
Was that the sort of same as Nan Shepherd?
Well, she actually lived there. So that was the little difference, is that she had a house there, but she'd wander across, the whole Cairngorm Plateau for days, but she did it over a lifetime. So I just went for 3 weeks, I think it was in the end. So she would have kind of kept going back all the time, but yeah, I just immersed myself in the 3 weeks I had.
What was the sort of feelings like between Scotland and India in terms of recreating these two stories?
The themes, did you say?
The feelings.
Oh, the feelings. Yeah, they were really different, actually. I think India, because it was the first one, it was really overwhelming. And I think the whole time I was just kind of overwhelmed. And I'd never been to that kind of scenery. I'd never really seen anything like that. So the whole thing was just not overwhelming in a bad way. Just everything was just fascinating. And I don't really know how to explain it. Just overwhelming, I think is the word. But with the Scotland one, I was a bit more confident in myself and I kind of knew a bit more about what I was doing. So I think I had a bit more time to appreciate it. And also India, it was manic. We had a lot of ground to cover. So we were walking for 8 or 9 hours a day constantly. So by the time we kind of set up camp and I made my fire, I'd just pass out on the floor. So I didn't have that much time, I guess, for reflection or to write my journal. Whereas in Scotland, I had all the time in the world because I was just wandering around at my own pace. And that was the hardest thing at first, was actually just learning to be still. And I'd be sitting there with no modern stuff thinking, oh, what do I do now? I've set up camp. Like, what do I do? And by the end, I just learned to just sit there, literally just sit and look around. And I've definitely taken that from that trip. How often do you just sit on your sofa and just do nothing? And I've tried to kind of bring that into my life now, where you don't have to be doing something all the time. It's fine to just sit, and appreciate things, I suppose. And I did a lot more writing on that trip because I had the time. I kind of went to bed when the sun did and got up when the sun rose. So yeah, they were really different trips.
I suppose it's sort of like a form of meditation, just being there with your thoughts and breathing without the sort of stimulation of, modern comms of your phone, TV, computer, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I find walking is quite meditative as well. So the whole thing, it was just like one, maybe it was my pilgrimage to the mountains. I don't know, but I came back actually feeling very zen, I have to say. Yeah, very clear-headed.
And how did that sort of trip sort of adapt you into going back into London again?
Yeah, again, I think it was really hard. And also I got the overnight train. So you literally get in at 7 a.m. When all the commuters are going to work. And it's just, and I didn't have any other stuff apart from what I'd been wearing because I didn't have room for anything else. So I was just walking through Euston Station at 7 a.m, literally just a mess. I think coming back's always hard, especially if you've been that detached from modern life. Like I didn't even really know what was going on in the news, apart from a few people I met on the way and I'd ask them, oh, what's going on in the world? It takes a bit of time to settle back in.
Yeah, I remember when I got back from one of my runs and Friday I finished. Then on Monday I was back into work, taking the tube, 8 a.m. rush hour, and suddenly I was just like,
it really does come over you. I don't know how to explain it. You just get this kind of overwhelming, I don't know, feeling, isn't it? It's really strange.
It takes a while to sort of adjust back, I always find.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. To kind of get back in the routine.
Yeah. And is there a sort of plan for the next one?
Yeah, definitely. I've got lots of plans. I actually had another one planned in Ireland, which was all funded for, and then obviously COVID happened. So that one is following in the footsteps of an old Irish pirate queen who's really, really epic. She's called Grace O'Malley, and she was from like the 1500s. So I would just love to get into that history and see what they actually had back then. I don't even know what they had, but because she was she traded a lot overseas, so she actually had a lot of stuff from Africa. So her little bit of Ireland, you know, her castle apparently was full of spices and different animal skins and all this kind of thing that the rest of Ireland didn't have. And yeah, she was quite famous because she was the only female clan leader kind of in history. And I really want to recreate a journey she did in a boat to Greenwich, where she met with Queen Elizabeth. So that's definitely one I want to do. And also Freya Stark in Iraq and Iran. So I'm working on that one at the moment. So hopefully that will be next year as well. And there might be another Scotland one next year too.
So Freya Stark, what did she do in Iraq?
So she was a bit of an archaeologist. So she actually went round looking for archaeology, basically. But she did lots of other stuff as well. But she wrote a book called The Valley of the Assassins, which is quite famous, actually. It's one of the more famous female explorer books because they've all got all these amazing books, but no one ever really bought them at the time. So she went and did that, went all through there, which is Iran, which is actually, it's been quite hard for British passport holders to get into recently, but I think it's changing this month actually. So hopefully we can do Iran. And then she also went to Kurdistan, which is the bit at the top of Iraq, which is beautiful mountains. And she just traveled around there, looking for archaeological sites basically. So I'd love to do that and follow in her footsteps as well. So yeah, there's lots. I mean, I've got a list now of about 50 women, so it's endless.
Yeah, I suppose once you find one or two, suddenly they all come, you suddenly find this amazing collection, because over history, you do hear these sort of stories about these incredible women doing amazing stuff, from flying, driving, doing these incredible hikes and all sorts, and they're there to be discovered. But as I say, the sort of publicity back in the day was a bit more difficult.
Yeah, and I think, it was very, obviously the guys, the men got all the glory, but I always say these women have it, and a lot of them disguise themselves as men as well. They would dress up. One of them got on a boat, a sailing boat full of men for 6 months and pretended to be a man, and I don't know how that's possible, but she did, because otherwise they weren't allowed to go a lot of the time, which again is fascinating that they would do that just to kind of go on a trip somewhere. It's incredible. There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Wow. God, what an absolutely incredible story. And it was one of the reasons when I sort of discovered what you did. I was just so keen to sort of hear the story about it, because it's such a cool way of recreating these adventures from the past.
You.
But you do take it to quite an extreme.
But that's the fun bit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing.
It's also
I think other people have also, followed in these women's footsteps and kind of highlighted their journeys. But again, I think it's so important to do it with what they had, because that's just showing how hard it was. And I think we kind of forget that now, because we've got all our amazing equipment. Don't get me wrong, I love a North Face jacket, but I appreciate it even more now.
No, I know, I'm sure, especially with the itchy tweed or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been absolutely incredible sort of hearing these stories, and there's a part of the show where we ask the same 5 questions to each guest each week. And this is probably going to be a bit difficult, this first question, because it's what gadget do you always take with you on your adventures?
Oh, no, I do have, it's not a gadget, but it's a wooden comb.
Okay.
And a tiny little mirror that's actually completely ruined now. And this mirror's been through a lot with me. It's been to festivals. And I got it in like my stocking. My dad put it in my stocking when I was really young, and it's completely ruined now. But I always have this tiny little mirror that's actually only got half a mirror left in it, and my wooden comb. So those two things, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, when I was sort of about to read it, I was like, Gadget, this is going to be difficult when she goes back to 1920.
You get some people talking about camera lenses and things like that.
Exactly. What about your favourite adventure or travel book?
So now I have lots. But yeah, so obviously it's My Journey to Lhasa by Alexandra david-neel. But I've actually been reading so many now. And I just read a modern one called The Salt Path by Raina Wynn. And I think that might be my new favourite book. It's absolutely amazing. So obviously the old books, but yeah, that's probably my new favourite travel book. And she walks all around the southwest coast path of the UK. And it's just so beautifully written. And it's made me want to go and walk all around there.
Nice.
Maybe I'll do that in my spare time.
Yeah, around the sort of Jurassic Coast area.
Yeah. I'd love to do that.
Why are these adventures important to you?
I think, they're important because it's kind of shining a light on these women that were kind of forgotten all those years ago. And still now, I think they're becoming more forgotten. So for me, it's just really about highlighting their story. And also, I guess, just trying to inspire people to go and do their own adventure. Like I said earlier, you don't have to wear a chair on your back and go to the Himalayas. You can do anything. And I really believe now, obviously it's been proved that, how nature can help your mental health. So even if it's just going to a park for a little bit of time, things like that, I think that's kind of just to show that as well.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It's the idea of adapting and getting outside, because it's so easy nowadays to sort of be inside, to be on your phone, and unfortunately sort of social media and all sorts they're just such easy conveniences, and it's so easy to be on your phone suddenly for like 20 minutes, half an hour, scrolling through and be like, where did that just go?
Absolutely. And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I actually hate social media, but I do it but I end up scrolling, and I have to be really strict myself. But it's addictive, and sometimes you just need to put it away and get outside. Especially the last year, it's been really tough. So no,
they know it's addictive. So they're designed to be that.
They're designed to be, yeah, definitely.
That's why you're sort of like, that's cool, that's interesting.
And you get in a little rabbit hole looking at people you don't want to look at. All this, no, horrible.
The joys. Yeah, I think it's so important to sort of put it down, go outside, go for a run, go for a walk, whatever it may be. And just give yourself the opportunity to have that time and space to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. Definitely.
What about your favourite quote?
Oh, well, I know that one. I vowed to show what the will of a woman can do. Alexandra david-neel, 1912. Yeah, that's probably my favourite quote, I would say.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And finally, people listening are always keen to go on these sort of adventures. What's the one thing you would recommend for people wanting to get started?
Buy a map that has walking routes rather than roads on it. Well, I'd never organised anything like this. I'd never done something like this. So I ordered all these maps because I was like, I need to look at the route where I can walk. But they're all just you need to get specific walking, which I'm sure everyone already knows that. But that's something I didn't know. I didn't really know anything about this kind of thing. So that was probably my first light bulb moment. I would say that. And also that if you think something's not possible, I would say it probably is. So just keep keep going. Because especially in India, where I wanted to go, all the people I was trying to organise it were like, no, people don't go there. We don't walk there. That's not where tourists go. But I kind of made us go. You know, you just have to keep pushing, and then you can eventually get to these places. I think anything's possible, really, if you keep pushing, keep trying.
Perseverance.
That's the word I'm looking for, yeah.
And finally, what are you doing now, and how can people follow your trips and adventures in the future?
Amazing. Yeah, so I mainly on Instagram, actually. So that's a good place to follow. And I've got a website as well, which is womenwithaltitude.com. And then the Instagram is womenwithaltitude. And then you can follow me trying to get funding for my next trip. And I put everything on there. So yeah, you can chat to me on there and send me messages or whatever if you've got any questions.
Oh, nice. What sort of funding are you looking for?
So we're doing two things at the moment. I'm going out to channels at the moment to try and get like a series funded, I suppose, so we can kind of highlight a load of these women, which is obviously really, really difficult. So in the meantime, I'm just going to companies. And so, for instance, for the Grace O'Malley trip in Ireland, I've been writing to Guinness, who are yet to reply. But just companies like that, because I get a lot of press coverage from these trips. So there's a lot in it for them. So I'm just trying to find companies that are willing to kind of sponsor me and help me out, really. That's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, because you've been recently all over sort of BBC.
Yeah, that was that was crazy, actually. Yeah, we just filmed a little piece for BBC London, because obviously I live in London, and then it kind of went a bit viral, and I ended up on BBC Breakfast, which was so funny. But yeah, so it's going really well at the moment. So yeah, now's the time to kind of get on the funding and try and sort out the next trips.
Well, it has been such a pleasure listening to your stories.
Oh, thank you.
I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Well, I can't wait to sort of follow your adventures in the future, and hopefully if this podcast can help towards funding.
Thank you.
And anyone
get the word out there.
That would be amazing. But it's just been such a pleasure listening to it.
Oh, you too. No, it's been a great chat. So thanks very much for asking me.
Well, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you got something out of it. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video.